All right, guys, what's going on? And welcome back to the Tipped Out Podcast. This is episode 22 with your hosts, Brandon Palmer and Danny Christie here. So, we just went over our entire putting mini series, all the way from setup, green reading, of course, into the motion of the stroke itself. Now, before we get into chipping and all the different types of shots, we just kind of want to take you through I would say the description or exactly what these shots mean. Is that kind of how you'd say that, Danny? We're kind of just going through and
Yeah,
decoding what
definitely.
kind of short game we're going to be touching on?
Definitely, Palmer. I think this episode might not be as action-packed, but it's going to be simpler and kind of to the point of if you don't know what you're doing around the greens and you don't know what shots to hit, you're going to kind of learn like the basic goals of a lot of shots and when to hit them and when not to. And it's really not super detailed, but it's pretty straightforward.
100%. Yeah, this is going to be a great segue into our first next mini series, and that's going to be on chipping. So what we want to talk about first now is what is a chip, and then kind of what is the chipping motion very briefly. So chipping, a chipping stroke should be similar to the putting stroke. We want the club head to stay low to the ground, and we want this ball to roll as quickly and as early as possible. So this would be a bump and run shot. So a chip is very low, usually a short distance, and it stays low to the ground, has a roll just like a putt. Anything you want to add to that, Danny?
No, I'm gonna track back really quick just so everyone knows what we're gonna be covering. We're gonna be covering chipping, pitching, lob, flop, and bunker shots right now. Basically, just the idea and kind of the reason and the goal of hitting all these different shots. And as Palmer just started us off with chipping, not a ton I want to add. I think a lot of times, chipping is underused and people don't use the club, low enough lofted club to really hit it like a putt. I think people have lost the art kind of the bump and run, but the advantage of it is the ability to take spin off the ball and control the roll better, similar to that of a putt.
Very, very well said. The setup is totally kind of like a putt. The actual gripping of the club is slightly different, but we're going to, of course, get into that when we dive into each of these aspects wholeheartedly themselves. So now pitching. I would say pitching is basically a condensed version of the full swing. I really like how that's set. And then, so we go high, soft trajectory, and more air time than a chip. Club selection can be a little bit different. We have a little more loft. And all it is a condensed version of the full swing, just a shorter, compact version. Same thing, back and through, a little bit of hinge. We're just popping that ball up, getting it to go over maybe a fringe, a bump on the green, or a slope, and then have a little bit of check spin, and also, roll out like a putt. This isn't a super high shot right now. This is just a little bit higher and longer than a chip.
Yeah, definitely. One way I like to look at it is the amount of time the ball's in the air versus the amount of time it's on the ground. A bump and run chip is going to be majority, like 80% of that time it's going to be on the ground. I mean, you're just getting it elevated enough to cover like a couple feet of fringe. And then the pitch will come into play once you start to get a little further from the green or you have a little less green to work with. And you're really, like Palmer said, you're just trying to throw it a little higher and softer so that it can run out, but you're not trying to do anything crazy like a flop shot, which we'll get into.
Yeah, so I'd say the first two, the chipping and the pitching, are the most consistent. And once you get the setup, they're the easiest way to kind of shave strokes off your game. If your chipping and your pitching are garbage, you're going to be having some high numbers out there and just some inconsistent rounds. So the next topic.
Yeah, we all know the guy. We all know the guy who. Oh, sorry, Palmer. We all know the guy who blades it back and forth across the green. So, I mean, don't be that guy. Your chipping and pitching are good. You're going to be in a lot better shape.
100%. With that being said, I just want to say most of the time, players out there, high handicappers, amateurs, juniors, they usually have maybe the right idea, but they just usually choose the wrong style of shot at the time. Like today, we were on the course. A quick story for you, which ties this in. We were out on the course to kind of paint the picture. You have a peninsula green, water all around the back side of it, green sloping towards that water, and it's kind of a high point from where we're standing with this student. And he tells me, I'm going to hit a bump and run. I just kind of nodded and stayed pretty quiet, and I wanted to see how he was going to hit the shot and then talk to him after as to why. So after he hit it in the water, I said to him, why was bump and run the call? And he said, I thought it was a safe play. I said, okay, see, you have about 50% of that correct. It's a safe option, but not in this instance. He needed more of what our next shot at hand is going to be, and that is the lob shot. So the lob shot is a specialty shot. Danny, kind of take us through the quick points here of the lob shot, if you would.
So lob is really, kind of down the list. It's just a spectrum of adding height, and when you add height, you take away roll. So lob shot is basically just a more extreme pitch shot. You might be using a more lofted club to begin with. You're going to be opening up the face probably. It's going to go a little more forward in your stance. The shaft might not be leaned as far forward. All these good things that we'll cover on how to control a trajectory through setup will change. And really a lob shot comes into play when you've hit a bad shot to begin with. So you're in a difficult position. And you're kind of hitting it over an obstacle, or you're really short-sighted and you don't have anywhere to land it. And you really just want to land it on the green because the bounce, you're going to get a more consistent bounce on the green. And that's really what I got for lob. BP, what do you got?
Yeah, that's all there really is. Like Danny said, the lie is crucial for both lob and the next shot, flop, and then finally bunker. Lie is pretty crucial for those three. For chipping and pitching, usually, we may have a decent lie. Hopefully, we're in the fairway or near the fringe, and then from that, we're going to have to look at grain. But as far as the flop and the lob shot, so flop shot is basically just a more extreme version of the lob shot. So lob shot, like Danny said, we're trying to get out of trouble. We're short-sighted. We don't really have much green to work with. And once again, it's going to have more height than a rollout. So the flop shot, specialty shot, and it's an extreme lob shot. That's all it is. Things like stance width may change, handle, the actual direction at which you're going to have the handle of the club. So a bunch of little quirky things that we'll get into for those specialty shots. But the flop, all it is just straight up, straight down, no green to work with, going over a tree maybe, over a bunker, onto a green, stuff like that. So once again, specialty shot, lie is crucial, good lie is crucial, some fluffy, good rough that's down grain is usually a pretty easy way to hit some good flop shots. But anytime that grain's into you, anytime it's a very short or tight grass situation, it's really, you need some definite skill and practice to pull a shot like that off. So I don't know how much more we have here, Danny. We've got the bunker left if you want to chop through that real fast.
I'm going to jump in quick, Brandon, and just touch on kind of everything we just covered. I kind of want people to have an overall idea of kind of how, when you work down that list that we just went through, that's in order of kind of necessity. So like the first one, chipping, like that's my first plan. That's my first option. I'm going to chip 10 times out of 10 if I can chip or hit that little bump and run. And then again, then I'm going to hit a pitch if I can't chip. And then I'm going to hit a lob if I can't get it near the pin with a pitch. And it just kind of goes on like that. And then kind of just the idea of landing it on the green too, because the reason a lot of times we need to hit these shots is because we got to carry rough and we're trying to land it on the green or maybe the fringe where we know we know what the ground's going to do. We're more we have a better idea of what the bounce is going to do. So that's really the reason that you have to be able to hit it low and high, kind of.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And last but not least, we have the what's up?
Nope, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, last but not least, we have the bunker shot. So believe it or not, a bunker is a hazard. So once again, all we're trying to do is get this ball from the sand back onto some grass, get it on the putting surface. So when we get into that, we're going to talk definitely a lot about the different types of shots, the chunk and run, the splash out, trying to nip it clean, the certain clubs to use, and kind of how to dictate, downhill lie, uphill lie, plug ball, all those different things that can happen in a bunker. We're going to go over that in the down the line kind of series on bunker. But for bunker shots, it's still another short game shot that we definitely want to have in our bag, if not to be like a little bit of a weapon for us and almost a strong suit. You'll see on tour, the sand, is extremely favorable, let's say, usually on tour. The ball doesn't plug too often. It definitely does. You can ask Bryson. But most of the time, it is good sand. They have incredible touch, and more often than not, they want to be in the sand on tour rather than the rough. It's just much more predictable from the sand. So we're going to get you hopefully the same kind of feel and same type of confidence that a tour player has from the bunker. So stay tuned for that mini series on bunker play as well.
Very well, BP. I just want to say, as far as bunker, it's definitely an area a lot of amateurs can use improvement on, and I think people get scared of it when they really don't need to be. As soon as you start to understand the kind of technique and just the fundamentals of the bunker, which do vary a little bit from out of the grass and the fairway, you can really start to not be scared of bunkers, gain a little bit of confidence, and realize that it's really not that hard to get out of bunkers. It's more just committing and trusting yourself and the technique that you've established.
100%. With all of these, it's set up. Yeah, it's 100% set up with all of these. Most of the time, you just, you have a flop setup with a bump and run mindset or vice versa. That's just the issue. So we're going to get some great matchups here for you guys. Go right through setup. And as we get into episode 23, our next episode here is going to be diving into chipping, more specifically the bump and run shot. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that. Other than that, Mr. Christy, what do you got? I think that was all the notes I had for today. Kind of just a great rundown of the short game shots we're going to be talking about, and kind of just making sure everyone's on board with the same terminology here. But they also know, like you said, the chronological or the safest order to choose from these different shots. It's definitely about keeping that ball in front of us, having it roll as much like a putt and be as predictable as possible. And then we go more and more height from there as we get closer and closer to the bad shot we hit or getting out of trouble. So what else you got, brother? Any closing thoughts?
I think that's a great way to wrap it up, Brandon. Couldn't have said it better myself, so I think we'll be looking forward to seeing you in the next one.
Awesome. So yeah, guys, so do us a favor. We are using a new software here to record called Riverside, so bear with us any technical difficulties. But with that also, let us know if you notice the video quality any clearer, our voices being a little more consistent, or if you notice anything. Other than that, I think that's all we got for you. Stay tuned for the next one when we dive into our first episode from our first series on chipping. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace and love.
Peace and love, baby.
Contraband got that dope.
Sometimes I don't feel alright. New girl on my face, she said she need a bite. That's why I don't feel alright. Catch me in the good mood, I just might.
Stop talking, I'm breaking the bank. Yeah.